Hello everyone, hope you guys are having a wonderful day. My name is Rehan and I will be talking about chapter 9 and chapter 10. The chapter 9 refers to talks about social stratification. Social stratification refers to the different levels or the division in the society. So it's a process through which different levels of society is created and is divided, so that's called social stratification, and it's divided into many subgroups, but for now we will be talking about two groups, which is the working class or the mid or the lower class, and the wealthy class or the prestigious class. And every and every society has this system of stratification, and the class is class stratification, and class is stratified into since the medieval period, since the or birth of the industrial revolution, where the society was divided into many subgroups, such as the working class and the capitalist or the wealthy class, who were the factory owners back in the industrial revolution. So we'll talk about unequal categorization of people and how it's categorized. So we'll talk about two types of status: ascribed status and achieved status. Ascribed status is a status which you get when you are born, or you are inherited with it without any work. Taking for instance, like the king, king's son becomes the king because he inherently gets the seat of his father. Taking for instance as the king of UK, who is Prince Charles. And then we'll talk about the achieved status. Achieved status is the status where a person or individual works hard for it and comes to a position, so it's called achieved status. So we'll talk, and taking for instance like the PM of England, who worked hard for to achieve a status through many electoral voting, and after many debates, so it's called achieved status for him. And moreover, we'll be talking about different kind of societies. Considering, taking for instance, the first society we will be talking about is a closed stratification system. So in the system, the society always consider, or uh, always takes takes charge of ascribed, as they consider ascribed status as the important status than the achieved status. This is for the reason that they choose people who are inherently getting the status, so they over the people who achieve it. Taking for instance like the example of Prince Charles. In such societies, it's called closed stratification society. Now we'll be talking about open stratification society. Open stratification society is a society where the achieved individual or achieved status is considered over the over the ascribed status. In this case, like taking for instance, like if you're an A grade student and people call you an A grade student, is the reason because you have got a, like you have worked hard to get it. Such status such status is known as uh, open stratification society. And in this status, in both the status, the social mobility is uh, pretty much different from each other. Like for the closed stratification society, the social mobility is pretty minimum. Hence, like once, because you have the power and you are inherently getting it, and hence you can't go back, and like you can't change the division. So hence the social mobility is pretty minimum. But in the open stratification society, the mobility is pretty high, because due to some uncertainty you might lose the position. Hence it's called mm, open stratification society. Taking for instance now, like the type of society or stratification in Canada. Like for instance, Canada is like a colonized country by the Francophones and the Anglophones, and due to which the marginalized community or the indigenous community were faced like many problems. Like they were heavily taxed, and they came below poverty, and due to which throughout the generation the people of indigenous people were exploited, due to which they came with a system of positive discrimination. This discrimination is a system where the government or the governing body keeps tries to uplift this group or marginalized group in the society. Therefore, it's known as the positive discrimination system. Then we will talk about different kind of caste system. Caste system is a system which is inherited through ancestral redefined, like taking for instance of India, which is during the medieval time, and even now during the modern time, the society was divided into many caste systems, and this system is still prominent in today's world, especially in India. And then we'll talk about class system took place during the industrial revolution, and during this system the society was divided into two, due to because of the factory ownership was given to selective individuals who became wealthy, while the people who worked under them became the working class or the lower class, and due to which they got access to the uh, access to exploit the working class. Moreover, they became capitalists in the society moving ahead. And then, as the is also known as the scientific era, because during this era, people tend to develop machineries. People tend to This was the era during which the machines were developed, and uh, many more things came into existence in the Europe, which made the private firms more wealthy, due to which they were able to sell their inventions to the factory owners or to government, due to which they became healthy and gave rise to the term called capitalism. Capitalism is a system where the people, the wealthy and the prestige people come under this class in the economy. Moreover, the social mobility and class is not possible in capitalism, because once you are rich, you can never go back to the position where you have been. While there have been many societies which we will be discussing, such as the racial societies, where it's divided based on the colors, and then the tribal societies, which is tribal societies is a society where it's a cluster of groups who come together in tribes, and they are divided based on the classification of the tribes. Therefore, this is known as tribal society. Moving ahead, we'll talk about the social classes in Canada. Social classes in Canada uh, are divided into many subgroups, such as the upper class, upper middle class, lower middle class, working class, and lower class. And due to which the country, even in country like Canada, many individuals are impacted due to the position and the status they are in. Like for example, or taking for example, like which we have spoken about, the indigenous communities who have been under the barrier of the system, where they've been exploited for many years. And that's how the stratification takes place in Canada, especially based on the how wealthy they are or the background. Moving ahead, we'll talk about the key concept in this chapter. This taking and first we'll talk about the income versus wealth. Income is something what we earn, while the wealth is something where what you what you own. So that's one. Then we'll talk about cultural capitalism or cultural capital. It's a behavior or knowledge which is valued over the higher class. And then the social mobility is like the process of moving up and down in the class, and it's harder than it sounds, but it's possible. Many people are working in are very working under the capitalism, or like the lower class or the working class, still live in poverty. And the sociological theories is that functionalism is inequality serves as a purpose, and it motivates people, while in conflict theory it's quite opposite. The rich exploits the poor, while its inequality is unfair. While symbolic theory talks about how we learn class through everyday interactions, how we speak, dress, how we roam with people, also defines how symbolic interactionism works. We'll talk about the global society now, which is the chapter 10. So in this chapter we'll talk about the history of colonization and trade. Taking for instance, global inequality took place during the European time, when the European countries were able to colonize countries such as like African and Asian countries, and the America was also exploited due with the help of slave trade, and many raw materials enriched the Europe and improvised the colonies. During the historical system, there was many long-term effects. Many countries faced colonization, and due to which their economies failed poorly, and they became underdeveloped. While countries like European countries like UK, Spain, Portugal became wealthy, as they were able to colonize more and more countries. And then we'll talk about the measuring of global poverty. Global poverty is measured in two scales: the HDP, which is the gross domestic product, and GNI, which is the gross net uh, GNI, which is the gross net uh, value. So it's per capita and helps to measure the country's wealth. And the human development index helps to calculate the education and the life expectancy, to give a fuller picture of the economy. While absolute poverty is not enough for it's a status when you have not enough money to even to survive, while relative poverty is being poor compared to other countries. We'll talk about globalization. Globalization is one of the most important topic in this chapter, as we come across. Since globalization means that the world is more connected to each other, and in terms of goods, jobs, people, information, technology, and across borders quickly. This helps in many ways, such as you can exchange ideas and cultures. You can get access to many resources, especially cheap resources. And then we'll talk about the problems, which such as the job loss and in some countries due to outsourcing. We'll talk about the we will like also there are many environmental damages due to overproduction in order to fulfill a particular demand of a country. Taking for instance, like when there is an overproduction of oils taking place in America, like Saudi had to put tariffs on America, due to which the oil prices went high globally. And there is also unequal power distribution, while the rich countries benefit more over the global south countries, who controls the global economy. Institutions like United Nations, World Bank, and IMF shapes the global policies, and critics. So they support the wealthy and nation countries by developing ones. Multinational corporations like Amazon, Facebook, and YouTube are some of the corporations which are like together use cheap labor from such global south countries. From Like they take like labors from the poor countries and send profits back to the richer ones. Globalization and sociology are closely linked together. Functionalism and global trade keeps things running and smoothly, while global system benefits the rich while and hurts the poor. Symbolic interactionism is totally different, because it talks about the global trend that shape us, and how we act, how we dress, and how people think about us. In conclusion, social inequality is something which is pretty broad topic, and how we face discrimination across, and how it's being existing across globe. In it also plays a crucial role in shaping our history since the colonization, and how the current global system runs based on the class division of rich and poor. Sociology help us to better understand the root causes of class stratification and global inequality, and help us through the various theories, which makes us possible to distinguish what's right and what's wrong. Thank you.